Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Friday, May 29th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin was down 1.2% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,393, a high of 9,630, and a low of 9,352. Volume was about normal for a weekday, with 5,454 Bitcoins trading hands. The market continues to lean long, with 80% of the market heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance was at 66%. Everyone get ready to like the show and share as we get ready to start. Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy. In every life we have some trouble. When you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy now. Ain't got no place to lay your head? Somebody came and took your bed. Don't worry. Be happy. The landlord says your rent is late. He may have to litigate. Don't worry. Be happy. Look at me. I'm happy. Here, I'll give you my phone number. When you worry, call me. I make you happy. Ain't got no cash. Ain't got no style. Ain't got no gal to make you smile. But don't worry. Be happy. 'Cause when you worry, your face will frown, and that will bring everybody down. So don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy now. Now there is this little song I wrote. I hope you learned it note for note, like good little children. Don't worry. Be happy. Listen to what I say. In your life, expect some trouble. When you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Be happy now. I feel like we just did the price. I'm good on it. Bitcoin 896-day accumulation will now spark a $100,000 Bitcoin bull run. Analyst. Oh, I like to hear that. That sounds nice. False alarm. Bitcoin upsurge to 9,600 is a weak futures-driven rally. Oh, I don't like that. That's not good. Bitcoin rally falters as stocks drop ahead of Trump's China speech. Previously, the president had talked about cutting off Hong Kong, ending Hong Kong's unique trade status, as well as perhaps taking actions, allegedly sanctions, against China for what they're doing to Hong Kong, perhaps causing a drop in the stock market, then leading to a drop in Bitcoin, perhaps. But the news is all about the price, the price, the price, and the price. The worst crisis in a century is setting the stage for Bitcoin. The last time this happened, Bitcoin surged from 3,150 to 14,000. When the inflow of Bitcoin into exchanges plunged. Supply shock. Get ready. Bitcoin rally shows that traders don't care that Goldman Sachs hates their asses. Sorry, that was hates their asset class. Goldman Sachs hates their asset class. 3 recent catalysts for Bitcoin, you don't say. Bitcoin versus NASDAQ 100. Watch them thrive during the pandemic. Ooh. And we all know that yesterday or the day before, Goldman Sachs called the Bitcoin market tulips again. But that's not really what we're here to talk about, is it, right? It was just yesterday we were having great discussions about Twitter and Facebook and online freedom and privacy, and we were having a grand debate. It seems to have ended today, but let's work our way there. Let's work our way through the news. Stick with us on this one. It's a big news day. Joe Biden, the hard truth is that this crisis didn't have to be this bad. At this point, you can hardly tell what crisis he's referring to. Donald Trump expected to sign an executive order that would remove Section 230 liability protection. This was protection that Twitter, Craigslist, Amazon, everyone used. It's the common carrier protection. It's the protection that they did not afford to Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road. It's the protection that basically says you can have someone go on Twitter and claim that someone else is a murderer without evidence. But now, if they remove that waiver, Twitter would be responsible for carrying this message. So it actually would increase the amount of censorship on Twitter by removing this Section 230. But ideally, it should let Ross Ulbricht out of jail, right? I mean, we should turn that one around because clearly he's no different than Twitter or Amazon or Craigslist. Shout out to Petra in the chat. She said, if someone had told me even 3 years ago that today I'd be holed up learning to build D apps so I can create a blockchain game based on equestrian Twitter, well, I couldn't have written this life. So very cool to see Petra working on her code, and look forward to finding out what equestrian Twitter is and if they're going to race each other. I don't know. So we were talking about yesterday that millions of people vote by mail, including the military and President Trump. The Republicans seem to have realized that if everybody voted by mail, i.e. if everybody voted, they can't win. And Donald Trump is telling people this on Twitter. So very surprising that he's letting that out. John Carvalho continues his strike for Lightning, saying, any notable Bitcoin company without an actual plan or timeline for supporting Lightning doesn't actually care about Bitcoin. Time is up. Should call this event strike for can thank me later. So there we go. Give John a good idea. Feynman, you don't know when you're dead. When you're dead, it's the same thing when you're stupid. In both cases, it's pain only for others. Nailing it. Feynman. We have a new tactic here from Hong Kong, something that we should be learning here in America. Look how they're using the leaf blower, portable, light, electronic, battery-powered, to not only blow the smoke away from the tear gas canister, but also to neutralize the canister itself. You see right there, it's pumping out a lot of smoke. He's blowing it away. One of the other guys is able to come in. It looks like he puts a cup around the top of the tear gas canister, and then you know what you do with those things is you throw them back. So a new tactic right here of using a leaf blower. Looks like invented by an older gentleman right here in Hong Kong. No doubt we'll be seeing that in America soon. Mess with the best, die like the rest. Had another Tetris victory yesterday. Had to celebrate a little. And you can check out right here, we've got the latest World Crypto Network, an interview from the Lightning Conference 2019, back in the old days when we could still go outside. An interview with BTC Pay Server. So check that out. Kind of well-timed. Accidentally there, BTC Pay just raised another round of funding from OKCoin and are continuing to provide open source software that does the same thing that BitPay used to do. President Biden has been making speeches about unemployment, saying that now unemployment has risen to more than 40 million people. We still don't have a plan to undo this unemployment problem. Unlike Denmark, we didn't save the firms. So there are no jobs or companies for a lot of these people to go back to. What are we going to have to do? Well, again, it's going to be painful, just like Herbert Hoover time. Herbert Hoover didn't want to print money. Herbert Hoover didn't want to expand the government with programs that gave people jobs. And thus he wasted 4 years during the Depression doing nothing. We're right there again. They don't want to do this. They don't want to give people jobs. They don't want to give out massive loans, essentially grants for people to restart restaurants and other businesses. But that's what it's going to take. We can wait 4 years and then we can do the grants and the loans and the job programs. But it's going to be much sadder. Of course, we already did this with Herbert Hoover, so you guys can go read the history. Christopher Boozy writes, they may have to remove this man from the platform. He's getting worse. President Trump in all caps this time. Mail-in voting will lead to massive fraud and abuse. It will also lead to the end of our great Republican Party. We can never let this tragedy befall our nation. Big mail-in victory in Texas court today. Congrats. So, very strange stuff from the president. But we're just accelerating towards the real news. President Biden has an effective national testing strategy for coronavirus, something where you would be able to go to a local place, they would test you, you would find out your results all over the entire country, not just by employees or random hospitals, but an entire nationwide strategy to fight the coronavirus. It's almost like we should just swap them out today. Like maybe if we could just have a good old-fashioned UK election, throw out one government, get a new government, and get one of these national testing program things, right? We don't even have a bad national testing program. Like at the very least, we should have an attempt. We should have some kind of a failure. We don't even have that. Meanwhile, Trump did what he said within 24 hours of Twitter labeling his tweets about mail-in voting as potentially false. He attacked Twitter and other Facebook, other online companies directly, signing an executive order, presumably removing the Section 230 protections of the Communications Decency Act, the CDC. Happened so fast. Remember we had the virus and he wouldn't do anything for months and months and months? This thing he turns on fast. That's because those lies about mail-in voting are valid towards his goal of overturning the 2020 election results. Remember, you have to win this election because your loans come up mid-term, right? If you're not president, Deutsche Bank is going to make you pay back those loans. You need to be president. You can't let that happen. We had last night, we had flashbangs and tear gas going off in the street, not in Hong Kong, in America. And, very much having flashbacks to 4 years ago when we, or I guess it was 6 years ago now in 2014 when we did the Hong Kong Umbrella Revolution protests right here on the World Crypto Network, except that it wasn't a fancy MSNBC journalist standing out there. It was our friend James Bang, and he was attacked by police. He was beaten. Eventually, he got a helmet. He was strong. He was caught up in wrong groups. They didn't identify him as press half the time. So things have changed, you would think, right? Things are different in the United States, you would think, he said, foreshadowing. So let's see. Is it going to bring me back to the top? Yeah, great. Thanks, Twitter. But yes, we are continuing to cover this story, even if Twitter doesn't want us to. Going back. Thanks, Twitter. I regret clicking on the picture. I've been appropriately punished. All right, let's keep moving. So then this happened. Here we have Minneapolis Police Department. They're rolling through a public street there. There are some protesters with signs. And whoa, what is that? Is that a police officer spraying? Is he spraying bear mace out of his windows at the peaceful protesters? That's right. Minnesota police officer spraying bear mace out of his window towards peaceful protesters in daytime. Right there. So you want to know who should be arrested first? This guy right here. Guess what, buddy? We're going to get your number. We're going to get your car number. We're going to find out who you are. And you just sprayed bear mace into a crowd of people. For what reason? Were they in your way? You're driving pretty fast, actually. They had bicycles. You don't like people with bicycles? So that's how that happened. So obviously, already yesterday we had the peaceful protest. Then they turned it into a riot. They brought in the riot police and the tear gas. So everyone got the idea that peaceful protest is not going to be acceptable. And that led to this. It was still early. I was still awake. And they had just barely lit the police station on fire. This is the police station where the 4 officers who murdered the African-American gentleman in the street came from. So they burned it down. As Count de Monet says, the district attorney said they had no evidence to show wrongdoing, and then they wonder why shit is burning. They were also setting off fireworks. It was like V for Vendetta. It was like a movie. John Cleese, in the middle of all this, came out with a haymaker against Mitch McConnell. John Cleese said, "Times must be difficult for Mitch McConnell. His rigid, uncompromising support for Trump continues, although the whole edifice is crumbling. Nevertheless, chin up, Moscow. If you can find it, that is. It went missing around the same time your spine disappeared." Ooh, John Cleese throwing down. Minneapolis is still on fire. Here's a video of some fire. Reminded me of Burning Man, to see large-scale fires, to see the different levels that things go to. They were showing part of a liquor store fire earlier. You could see the timbers getting hot, the fire burning outside the timbers, and then eventually burning inside the timbers right before they collapsed and lost structural integrity. Right about here, they say this is the moment when the Minnesota police officers abandoned the 3rd Precinct building. They had the option of lining up in the streets and fighting for it and smashing people, but instead the officers walked away, drove their police cars away, took their equipment and other things that they could gather, and left the building to the protesters. They say that this might be an official strategy. You keep the protesters contained in one area, and then they do less damage. Rather than continuing to roll down the street, lighting more buildings on fire, they would actually light less buildings on fire. Oh, it must be sad for that guy to drive away. Looks like he's got an armored vehicle with a possible machine gun or a water cannon or something on top. Very friendly fellows, those guys. So the police abandoned the building, and then the protesters burned it down. Bitcoin hash rate is picking up in the last couple of days, most likely due to the Sichuan region picking up mining and new rigs reaching their destinations. Next difficulty adjustment in 6 days sees a potential decrease of 15%, which could be one of the highest percentage decreases in Bitcoin history, likely to all of those old miners that were turned on very quickly and then turned off once the difficulty and the halving reward changed. So the president went on his @RealDonaldTrump Twitter account and he put out this horrifying message. "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you." And this tweet, unlike Trump's previous tweets, which received a warning below the tweet, and it was more of a fact-check warning, this tweet received the glorifying violence warning. Now, normally, in the old days, if you had a tweet that glorified violence, Twitter would simply delete your account, right? If it was reported by enough people and they read the words, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts," they would just remove your account. But remember, a few days ago, we talked about the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win situation for Twitter. Twitter could have acted strong. They could have removed the president's account off like a Band-Aid. He would have been gone. He would have created his own right-wing Twitter, so on and so forth. It would have been their problem. That would have stopped him from putting out any more negative messages on your platform, essentially using your platform to spread the negative messages. However, Twitter went with the middle route, right? They could have done nothing. That was certainly an option. They could have removed the president entirely, but they went with the middle route where, like Zuckerberg horrifyingly warned them, they had become the arbiters of truth. It wouldn't be just enough to fact check and to link to some kind of newspapers or magazines because they're all corrupt too. So there are no more facts. There are no more truth. The whole postmodern thing happened to us. Meanwhile, the president quoted George Wallace here, the violent ruiner of riots, the anti-civil rights figure. When the looting starts, the shooting starts is a direct quote from George Wallace. So they mark this as a violent tweet. Then, not too long after, the president went right over to the White House Twitter account, @WhiteHouse. And just like a little child, when you get a little child, they get in trouble for using the internet and you catch them at it. And you're like, yeah, we're watching you the whole time. We're going to delete all your accounts. We know they're all connected. You're kind of an idiot. You need to do a better job next time. You're a moron. Well, then the little child will just go and he'll copy and paste whatever he did that's bad onto another account. And you'll be like, wow, we just told you not to do this. We're not stupid. So yes, the president then copy and pasted this tweet, went over to the official @WhiteHouse Twitter account, which is still archived by law. So that went immediately into the National Archives when he pasted this tweet in there again. And then they put the violence tag on the official White House Twitter account. So Twitter, things have gotten much worse for you in this Kobayashi Maru situation. You now likely need to remove @RealDonaldTrump account, @White account, and likely @POTUS account because they're all acting in concert against your rules and continue to spread these negative messages using your platform, which you are now extra liable for. Previously, we would just assume you would be sued, but with the lack of Section 230 from the Communications Decency Act, you could be sued for this. Twitter has to remove these violent messages. They are now culpable and responsible for it. So it's a pretty strange thing that the president has done. He's the one making the violent messages. He just removed the legal protections for the server he's using to make the violent messages. And now there's even more responsibility on Twitter, not the president who's making the violent messages, but on Twitter to remove them. Various reactions. It says the president is openly threatening to murder people. How does he still have an account? He's calling for the execution of Americans. How is this in the interest of the public? His violence inciting racist thugs tweet is officially a violation of Twitter's rules. Once again, Twitter had the chance to stand up for their rules days ago. All they had to do was take strong action, remove the president from their platform. They did not. Hello, Jack. Respectfully, please don't allow Trump any further use of the tool he's using to incite violence. Suspend his Twitter account. Sincerely, Peaceful Solutions to Problems. Any additional violence spread by his Twitter account, Twitter is now doubly liable for. Big mistake. Twitter's in real trouble. Meanwhile, in the Czech Republic, they put the mask rule in March. They've basically conquered the epidemic and are reopening businesses and lifting the mask rule again. 2 months of mask compliance has stopped the epidemic. If only we could do that here. If only we had any kind of leadership in February or March that could have led us out of this crisis sooner. We could have saved lives. We could have saved the economy. But we didn't. Shout out to the United Kingdom. The UK says it will open a path to citizenship for 300,000 Hong Kong residents unless China backs down on its planned security laws. And it really is time to do a brain drain on Hong Kong. Let's get as many people out of there as we can. If you're in Hong Kong and you have the ability to leave Hong Kong, please leave Hong Kong. You had a good chance during the immigration period of 1986 to 1996. You had another chance in this early period, 1997 to 2020. But I don't think you'll have much of a chance in the next period of 2021 until the end of time. So it is time to get out of Hong Kong. The Dow Jones lost all of its gains for today after Trump says he'll hold a press conference on China tomorrow. They're expecting more sanctions and the closing of Hong Kong trade. So the market is headed down again. Daniel Modell writes, "There's no image that better defines the state of our country right now." And you can see the sideways image of Minnesota State Patrol arrests CNN crew. And this is about where I woke up in the middle of the night. It was around 3 or 4 a.m. CNN crew was just arrested in Minneapolis, and the fired cops who murdered George Floyd remain free. Zuckerberg says that Facebook shouldn't be in the business of deciding what's fact and fiction while banning the Lincoln Project ad, but allowing all manner of racist conspiracy theory just tells you how stupid he thinks everyone else is, and how utterly devoid of values he is. It is a bad look for Zuckerberg. There's a lot of bad stuff on his platform, and a lot of times where they do attempt to find out the truth. And again, this is just a whole stalling tactic. They just want to run these open social networks and make ad money as long as they can. All smart people know it's bad. They know they're changing people into ad money. They know that they're shaping truth and they're limiting things. But they have the power right now, and they're going to keep doing it until they lose the power. And here it is right here. Let's watch from CNN directly the arrest of the CNN reporters on the street. Then we're going to talk about it more. So we're showing this for commentary and fair use purposes. Fair use.
We can move back to where you'd like here. Right now, give us a second, guys. We can move back to where you'd like. We can move back to where you'd like here. We are live on the air at the moment. This is the four of us. We are one team. Just put us back where you want us. We are getting out of your way, so just let us know.
You've never heard more polite.
Wherever you'd want us, we will go. We are just getting out of your way when you're advancing through the intersection. So just let us know, and we got you.
They seem like stormtroopers, don't you think? They're like thinking about things, not very bright. You could hear earlier, as I listened to it in close detail, you could hear one of them say it's a cameraman and 3 security guards. Like, very clearly, this is an official film crew, right? They have the producer, they have the boom mic guy, they have the security guards, they have giant signs that say CNN. He's got a badge on his jacket that says CNN. He points at it.
And this is a scene here.
There's the badge right there. He's holding his badge.
Part of the advanced police presence that we saw come over the course of really minutes when the local police showed up at the fire department.
He's describing the scene. He's even describing them kindly.
We showed you that was burning. This is among the State Patrol unit that was advancing up the street, saying and scattering the protesters at that point for people to clear the area.
What are they thinking about right now? They're like, we should arrest this guy doing a news broadcast?
I'm sorry? You're under arrest. Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Officer's with CNN and he's on the air right now.
Okay.
You are arresting him live on CNN. We told you before that we are with CNN.
You are arresting him live on CNN. We are with CNN. Look how nervous they are.
If you're just tuning in,
yeah, that big crew of people, and they're still afraid of like a car noise.
Watching our correspondent, Omar Jimenez, being arrested by state police in Minnesota. We're not sure why our correspondent is being arrested.
Hang on one second, Allison. Let's listen into what these officers are saying.
So that guy's a lieutenant. So he went to college. That's a college
That is an American television
educated
reporter,
police
Omar
officer
Jimenez,
right
being
there.
led away
What a moron.
by police officers. He clearly identified himself as a reporter. He was respectfully explaining
still live
to the state police that our CNN team was there and moving away as they would request. And then for some reason, he was just taken in to police custody. live on television. I'm sorry, I did not
Oh,
mean
they're
to interrupt
doubling
you,
down.
Allison. I
They're
just wanted
tripling
to
down.
hear, listen to see if we could hear
Again,
more
you got to
from
hire more
officers, the
educated
state
police
police
officers.
as
This is
going on.
embarrassing, Minneapolis. Like you've completely lost the whole country right here.
We're trying to see what's going to happen, John, obviously to the rest.
I'm about to, guys. We were just out here reporting the closure of the streets. They just, Omar was just arrested. I believe they're about to, we're all about to be arrested. That's our producer.
Look at this. They're arresting the producer too. Like, what are you doing?
Our CNN producer is
I'm
being,
probably going to be taken in a minute.
our CNN camera crew
we're
and our
just,
producer are being
like I
arrested
said, just
right now
reporting
on
on the
live
closure.
television in handcuffs.
I've never seen anything like this,
Why, guys? What is?
Allison.
I've seen it in China. I watched it happen to James Bang in China. He held his camera up against them and told them they were live on the internet while they arrested him. Same thing.
You know, we're just out here
Deja
doing our
vu,
job
baby.
As well as you all. Can you tell me what are?
You're under arrest.
Okay.
Be on your back.
I'm being arrested now. I gotta put. Can I put the camera down?
I love this part right here. The camera continues to run. So these officers, they must really think this is a fake CNN crew, right? They must think, oh, we've captured, we are geniuses. We've
If you're
figured
just
out
tuning in,
this
is
fake
our
camera
our
crew.
CNN camera crew being arrested by the Minneapolis State Police, we believe. The camera is now on the ground because our cameraman has been handcuffed. Our correspondent, Omar Jimenez, was also led away in handcuffs, as was his producer. They were standing where they were told to stand previously by police. They were out of the way. We don't know why they're being arrested. They're not being given any explanation, as far as we can hear, for why they're being arrested. We don't know why they're being handcuffed and led away. They are allowed to be reporting on the unrest that's happening right now, but for some reason, the state police have decided that they need to be under arrest.
And just to be clear, Allison, having been in the middle of protests like this, I've never seen anything like this. I have never seen anything like this.
So the camera
is being
continues to
walked away.
run.
Now, I don't know if this camera is still in the hands of our photojournalist or whether
No, it's
the
a police officer, buddy.
Yeah, this is the police carrying our camera right now, frankly not aware that it's still rolling.
Yeah, can you
We
believe
have
they're
been
that
listening
stupid?
in, and our team there has not been given any explanation for why they have been taken into custody. And I just want to be clear, if you were watching what Omar was saying and listening to his reporting, he was explaining what had happened over the last few hours and how law enforcement was arriving on the scene and how they had dispersed the crowds largely and how for the first time there was order in the scene. Nevertheless, taken into custody, our camera now on the ground, still rolling, still capturing these live images. We're going to keep on listening to this.
How
camera.
dumb do you have to be
Josh
not to
Kemp,
turn the
who
camera
I believe
off?
is not yet
You just captured a camera crew.
Hang on one
What do you think they were doing there?
All right.
He was
Police
talking
are
to
now
it.
saying they're being arrested because they were told to move.
Oh,
and
they were
didn't.
told to
Now,
move and didn't.
we were
Well, we just watched
on
the
the air
video
the whole
about that,
time.
didn't we? We're on the hair the whole time. Yeah, that
Lionel,
lie's
our
not going to work.
photographer, who still has communications with us, told us they
There
had
he is,
been
you can see him
arrested
moving.
because they were told to move and didn't. If you were watching, you can see our team was very respectful to the law enforcement.
Told to
presence
move
as
and
it
didn't.
moved
The lie
through
doesn't work when
the
we have the
area.
footage. We all have the footage. So they took this lie out on the road and they shopped it around. Everybody's quoting this. Everybody's putting this out. If Minneapolis arrested murders, this shit wouldn't be happening. That's true. We had very nice support for Hong Kong from the German parliament. Germany is trying to cancel the EU-China summit. So there will be consequences for China's overreaction in Hong Kong. Officers arrested. First, they came for the journalists. We don't know what happened after that. That's true. But let's see if we can get this tweet. Okay, so the team was released. They were quickly released. Should have been arrested. Let's see. This is the guy that started the whole thing. But pretty much after that, the Minnesota people started to say that it was because they didn't move. So crazy stuff, because he didn't move. Let's get to our next clip of video. This is likely the video that started the whole thing. It says, Hennepin County Attorney Friedman. That video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that. But my job is in the end to prove he violated a criminal statute. And there's other evidence. Name the evidence that does not support a criminal charge. I will not rush to justice. So instead of having justice and charging these police officers, because oftentimes what you do is you charge someone with a crime and you have them taken in and you have them sweat it out. And maybe they admit to the crime, right? So charging them leads to admission. Charging them leads to arrests. Failure to charge them leads to nothing. And that's what this guy did right here, is he failed to charge them, leading the people right out into the street where they burned down a police office. So if this guy likes police offices and Targets and auto zones and liquor stores, maybe he should have acted proactively, taken action, and said, hey, we don't have all the evidence yet, but we have more than enough, and we're charging them. We're going to ring these officers up on murder charges. Maybe we're not going to win, right? It's very hard to convict a police officer, right? No one would deny that. But it's a lot harder to convict a police officer when you won't even charge them. Let's listen to the man who led the riot. Attorney, take it away. Twitter video. Plague upon both your houses. It only works if you refresh, and if you refresh, and it just... Twitter, your video needs help. Here we go.
It's a violation of my ethics to talk and
Ethics.
evaluate evidence before we announce our charging decision, and I will not do that. I will say this, that video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that. But my job in the end is to prove that he violated a criminal statute, and there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge. We need to wade through all of that evidence and to come through with a meaningful determination, and we are doing that to the best of our ability.
A man lies dead on the ground. They've got the video of it. You can hear him pleading for his life in the video. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Okay. Just say.
When it comes to the African American community, and we're here, a lot of us came down to actually call for peace. But when you guys are asking for them to be patient, they're saying that there was no patience when it came to George Floyd, when he begged and pleaded for his life.
Saying there's no patience when it came to George Floyd when he begged and pleaded for his life. Now you're asking the African American community to have patience. Why was there no patience for this man?
What message would you give us to take back to the African American community to bring peace and to ensure them that justice is going to be served?
What message will you give us to bring back to the African American community to ensure that there will be peace and that justice will be served?
I bring the same message that African American Attorney General of the state of
fuck
Minnesota,
off and
Keith
die.
Ellison, is bringing.
Fuck off and die.
I'm bringing the same message of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. We have to do
Your
this
lives
right.
don't matter.
We have to prove it in a court of law. And I will just point to you the comparison to what happened in Baltimore in the Gray case. It was a rush to charge. It was a rush to justice. And all of those people were found not guilty. I will not rush to justice. I'm going to do this right. And those folks who know me in the African community know I will do my very level best, but I will not rush justice because justice cannot be rushed.
You gotta charge him, you idiot. You didn't charge him. They burned your city down because of you. Because of you. You didn't charge them. The steps don't go forward. You could not rush to justice. You could read the evidence. You charge them. You get a video of people murdering people. You charge them for murder. Doesn't matter what color they are, what planet they're from. You get a video of people murdering people. You charge them for murder. That's it. Why haven't charges been filed for when George Floyd was pinned to the ground by his neck on video for more than 7 minutes? The video is graphic and horrific, But there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge. I will not rush. You mean there was a reason for the officers to kill him? What other evidence? Name the other evidence. Oh, there was a gun. There was a gun next to him. There was no gun. There's a gun on him. There's no gun. They're kneeling on his neck. His neck was a threat to them. This guy failed. He failed really bad. He's been a lawyer a long time, and now it's over. A whole life, a whole career. Even what he talks about at the beginning, ethics. Ethics. There's no wait for justice on this. He wanted to just wait. 40 million unemployed Americans. 100,000 dead Americans from COVID-19. Rioting across the country. Racial tension. Failure. Failure. Failure of leadership. This is under your watch, Donald Trump. You have failed us. Your presidency is a failure. They say the producer was arrested because they were asked to move and did not. However, we have the footage. We know that they were actually asking where to move to in the footage. The police officers who murdered an unarmed black man are still not arrested, but a black CNN reporter and his team were arrested for lawfully doing their job. Let that sink in. So I slept through the part where the president promised to bring in the military to kill civilians in response to civilian protest over policy impunity for killing civilians. This isn't ask to resign stuff. This is remove from office stuff. This thing accelerates. It's only today. Remember in the 1960s, remember the rings of protest around the White House? Remember when Nixon tried to leave and they threw stuff at his limousine every single time? Remember when Nixon tried to have meetings in his office and he couldn't because there was so much chanting outside? Well, that's this. It's just getting started. Just as with COVID, America refuses to contain the virus of hate that has plagued our land since its founding. With each new generation comes a new wave of infection as deadly and profound as the last. We cannot afford to sacrifice more black and brown bodies. Robert Reich. And I do wonder what was going through the officers' heads when they arrested the CNN crew. You just watched the video with me. You saw them there, standing kind of mute, describing the situation. Oh, we've got some security guards and a camera crew. Well, you think it's a camera crew? I mean, do you think they just hate CNN? They're just MAGA Trump people, and they're like, we're going to embarrass CNN by ruining our careers. Our entire lives are going to be ruined so we can lock this man up for about half an hour. This is a good idea, Jim Bob. I think it's a good idea, too. I think we should lock him up. He doesn't look like a news reporter. He looks like an African American. We should lock him up. So, yes, I don't know what the heck they were thinking. I mean, obviously, their careers are over. Their supervisor's over. That lieutenant right there who dragged him away, lieutenant's on the back of your shirt. That means you went to college. Did you study PE? You study physical education in college? Is that where you got your degree? So, yes, it's unbelievable to think what these people were thinking, and it just ended. Stone Kettle woke up to discover the revolution had started without him. Well, it's not over yet. Minneapolis is on fire after police murder a black man on camera. The economy is in ruins. Tens of millions of people have lost their job. Almost 2 million are sick and more than 100,000 have died. And Trump is ranting about mail-in ballots again. So he's really focused on the problem, that one. The problem of getting rid of the re-election results. We're in one of the worst economic disasters in American history. Amid a global pandemic, people are revolting against the police. The U.S. president is trying to bring social media companies to heel and has just threatened to shoot looters. What else can we pile on top of this? We've got UFOs, floods, And Kobe's gone. They say that heated protests continue across the U.S. Heated protest is a play on words to let you know that fire is involved. Media is so clever today. The CNN president spoke with the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, after the arrest of the CNN crew. Walz deeply apologizes and described the arrests as unacceptable. Naturally, we want the officers' careers for this. They should resign right now. And what a way for those officers to burn up all of their moral authority in an instant. They were doing their jobs. They were there to protect buildings and people, to protect businesses and police offices. Then they turned it all into them arresting the wrong people again. It's almost like the same people who trained the officers that murdered George Floyd in the street are the same people who trained the officers who arrested the CNN crew live on television. What a way to burn up all your moral authority in an instant. Just like that, and it's gone. And I don't know if you guys have been watching Money Heist or La Casa de Papel on Netflix, but it's a great show about heisting and bank robberies, basically, except that in the first series, they're robbing the Spanish mint, and it's got kind of an interesting aspect to it because they're printing the money, right? It's pretty fun. They took it over and started printing money. But in that show, they talk all the time about what it's like for them as bank robbers, that they want the public on their side, so they don't want to be the bank robbers that kill people. Just like in this, the police previously probably wanted people to be on their side. They didn't want the normal people of Minnesota to say, hey, wait a minute, this is really out of control. They wanted it to be more of a fringe protest thing. But when they went in, they arrested this CNN reporter. They lost all of their moral authority, right? They were a thin blue line protecting buildings and streets. Then they became a very biased thin blue line that arrested CNN's black reporter, but not CNN's white reporter. CNN's white reporter was told, you're fine, whereas the black reporter was arrested. That's really interesting. I wonder why that happened. Never forget that a black journalist was arrested before the police officer who killed George Floyd. And here's the official lie from the Minnesota State Patrol. The problem with a lie like this is that previously it was just the 4 officers on the street who were responsible, but now the officer who made the statement, the officer who wrote down the statement, the officer who tweeted this, now they're all involved, and now they all have to come to the trial. Oh, we're just handing out subpoenas like crazy this morning. The Minnesota State Patrol said falsely on their Twitter account, in the course of clearing the streets and restoring order at Lake Street and Snelling Avenue, 4 people were arrested by State Patrol troopers, including 3 members of a CNN crew. The 3 were released once they confirmed to be members of the media. False. They confirmed they were members of the media while you were arresting them. Liars. The CNN reporter and crew repeatedly identified themselves before they were arrested. This was live on TV. You don't get to invent alternative facts. More lies as we all watch the camera crew identify themselves live on TV. Can someone please inform these morons that we have the footage? Hey, morons, we have the footage. We watched it live. It's all over the internet. It's over for you. Stop covering things up. You're just expanding the number of people we need to subpoena and remove from their job at the Minnesota State Patrol. You're just adding your names to the list of the guilty. Should stop. A helpful guide for people in Minnesota. This is a weatherman doing the weather. Don't arrest him. See, it has a nice suit and the weather board. That might be a tip-off. This is a news anchor doing the news. Don't arrest him. Once again, see how he has the nice suit and he might have a microphone? Remember when you guys arrested the guy and you took his microphone away? that might have been a sign that you're doing something wrong. That might have been it. You could have said, whoopsie, sorry. Take note of the CNN logo on the microphone as it is being handed to the camera crew and the press credentials on the front of the reporter's pants. That's why we have these things. You could have just said, oh, I'm sorry, a reporter. We didn't know it was you. Whoopsie-doo. Instead, they cuffed him and arrested him and took the camera away. You idiots. You were on TV the whole time. You morons. As it says here, Kathy Green writes, y'all haven't figured out this whole video thing yet. There are these things called cameras that record real-time images and sound of everything they're pointed at. You should look into it. Seriously. People in Minnesota don't know about cameras? It's insane. And everyone is calling them out for this false statement. Again, the person who wrote this false statement is going to show up in court one day and have to explain why they wrote a false statement. As Laura Jarrett said, if this is the statement when everyone can see the truth live on CNN for themselves, what happens when the camera's off? How high does this corruption go? How many people are going to get fired from the Minnesota State Patrol for being complete idiots? It's like Idiocracy or maybe Spaceballs. How many assholes we got on this ship? Yo! Keep firing, assholes! Just surrounded by morons. Even CNN took to it, directly saying, this is not accurate. Our CNN crew identified themselves on live television immediately as journalists. We thank Governor Tim Walz for his swift action this morning to aid in the release of our crew, because otherwise we don't know. Maybe they'd be torturing them, right? Maybe they'd be torturing because they're fake journalists, right? They're not even from the media. Maybe we should hook them up to a car battery and see what they'll say. Splash them with a little water, huh? Let's waterboard them, right? So yeah, you can see the reporter gesture down to his press credential, which is in plain sight as he's getting arrested. The Minnesota State Police claiming they did not know he was a reporter till after the fact is 100% bullshit. 100% bullshit. And here's the tweet that the president did over on the White House account. Remember, Twitter, if you want to play this game, he only reacts to strength. If you removed the POTUS, White House, and @Real Donald Trump accounts today, then he would respect you. You can't just let him put these warnings on. Although this is a nicer warning, this does just show that you're bending the rules for one person. If you're bending the rules for one person, it's almost like the rules don't count for anybody. Bad choice, Twitter. Bad choice. The middle road was the weak choice. You should have gone all the way, or just not bothered to do anything. Those were the safe choices. Middle road, not safe. This is what it's like to lose, Twitter. The stakes are higher. Multiple accounts are now clearly in violation. You know what you should do. You should remove their accounts. But you're not going to. The official White House account is using the term, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. The apparent origin of this term is a Miami police chief in 1967 who also said, we don't mind being accused of police brutality. In 2011, the officer who killed George Floyd also killed an Alaska Native American, Leroy Martinez. He was 23 years old, and he had his hands up. And Amy Klobuchar was in charge of the prosecutor's office at this time. She declined to charge the officer. So Klobuchar is done. Anybody who had a vice president sign on Klobuchar, take that down. It's over. It's not happening. Here's an idea. Send in the military to arrest the cop who murdered a black man on TV. Oh, that's an idea. They'll never think of that. Point from CNN here. Her other colleague, Josh Campbell, is also on the scene in Minneapolis. He just reported that the police approached him, asked him who he was with. He said CNN, and they said, okay, you're good. This is minutes after Omar, who is black and Latino, was arrested nearby. And I caught some of Josh Campbell's reports from earlier in the night. Here you can see a picture of him. Let me switch to the other view. There you can see a full picture of the white gentleman. I can also tell you in the earlier shots of him at the scene, he looked like a little kid. Here we go. You kind of see him in the corner here with this very nervous, jumpy lady. But yes, he looked like a little kid right here. Obviously, he's much more pale than the other reporter, but he was not arrested. He was not bothered. He was told to be okay. And meanwhile, they arrested the other reporter. So it looks really bad for the Minnesota State Police. Just days after murdering George Floyd in the street, they've arrested a CNN reporter for doing his job. As it says here, and after pouring gasoline on an already raging fire, the Hennepin County attorney got into a car, lit an extra match to be sure, flung it out the window, and drove happily away. This is really a bad look. His career is over. This is the last decision that he made as an attorney. It was a bad decision. You should have charged them with a crime. If you murder someone in the street, at the very least, charge them with a crime. Arrest them. Start the investigation process. You can't just say, we're going to wait and we're going to do nothing. There's a video out there of the crime. There's a video of the crime. There's a video of the crime and it's on the internet. You can't do nothing right now. It's your last choice, buddy. It's the end. Shout out to Windmill Cancer Survivor. He writes, I'll just leave these facts here. On day one, they protested peacefully and were met with tear gas, mace, etc. On day two, they let loose. That's it. That's the post. The end. Does bring up an excellent point. Previous protests in Minnesota included the violent takeover of the State House and the men with guns. It might have been Michigan, just a state over, Minnesota and Michigan. But yes, the violent takedown of the State House, the men with guns, nothing happened. A mixed race crowd protesting the death of an African-American man, tear gas, mace, riot police, arrest the CNN. Antonia Hilton writes, I can't stop thinking about the fact that what we've repeatedly witnessed this week is what people do to black people when cameras are on. What do you think happens when they're off? I know. And it's funny, people often talk about how we have all these cameras in our pockets now, and this should lead to more alien sightings, right? We've got cameras, we've got video, we can easily capture them aliens. But it turns out what it led to was racism. We figured out that it's going on all around us, that all these stories of African-American people being afraid of the police are actually with good reason. And now we've seen multiple African-American people murdered on the streets for no reason. We saw the guy in New York. He was selling loose cigarettes. They kneeled on his neck. They choked him out till he died. There's the guy in the backyard. He was walking away. They shot him in cold blood. There's this one. They kneeled on his neck until he died. There's the Oscar Grant in San Francisco, where I was from, where the BART guy had him on the ground, and instead of pulling his taser, he pulled his gun. He shot him in the back. And it just keeps happening, and it just keeps being filmed. As Jim Acosta questions, the official White House account is tweeting this, and you can see the violence label was also put on the official @White-House account. So the account that previously tweeted things like the president's schedule and other non-offensive information is now tweeting that they will shoot the looters. that violence is okay. Here's a screenshot of the official at White House account tweeting this violent message: when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Those are Americans that he wants to shoot. Like, yeah, maybe they're stealing shit from Target, but death? I thought we just came through that African American people shouldn't be killed for passing off counterfeit $20 bills, and they shouldn't be killed for selling loose cigarettes, and they shouldn't be killed for just getting on a BART train. But we're just going to kill like a mass of people. So again, somebody's really been studying their Stalin here. If you kill one, it is a tragedy. If you kill a million, it is a statistic. And here we have the quote, the direct quote from George Wallace. George Wallace, his gig at the Civic Arena was the creepy crawly low point. When the looting starts, the shooting starts, Mr. Wallace told his frenzied devotees. No one could accuse him of lacking fire. And this was, of course, the 1968 riots at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where the police went into the streets with truncheons, with fire hoses, and they really busted some heads, right? They smashed up some hippie 60s liberal protesters who were protesting the Vietnam War and the involvement of the Democratic Party in that war. As Stone Kettle says, the thing is that Wallace eventually came around, renounced racism, apologized for his own actions, and sincerely set about making things right. It took him getting shot in the spine to see it, but eventually he did. Eventually. And Stone Kettle predicts that Trump never will. More people identifying the correct quote from George Wallace right there. Robert Reich has the correct quote. Brian Kloss writes, how incredibly stupid do you have to be to arrest a black reporter on live television while he is reporting on racially charged violence in a city in flames because a white cop who killed an unarmed black man hasn't been arrested? It boggles the mind. And you really got to wonder, maybe they were there to cover a different riot. Maybe they weren't given the news. Maybe they just drove in from out of town. They were on a fishing trip, and they were just dropped into this situation with their riot gear on. It's nonsense. Why did they do this? It's insane. Meanwhile, in coronavirus news, tests show 15 active cases of coronavirus at the Las Vegas Raiders stadium construction site. They had been warned about this earlier. They had allegedly shifted to activities that could be completed under social distancing with people spread out. But now we have 15 active cases. So it shows if you go back to work while the virus is still out there, you really work for the virus, right? You spread the virus. That's your job. Christopher Boozy writes, where is Carter, Clinton, Bush, and Obama this morning? These men must denounce the sitting president. Enough is enough. And I really hope there's some denunciation for him out there on TV, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I'm not so sure. And we almost made it to the top. We almost made it through the news. But wait, there's more. There's this right here from Jazz at JazzyJazz017. She went to the first day of the protests, and she has an interesting story she would like to share with us.
Good morning. I know a lot of things aren't going to be shared outside of Minnesota, so at least I want to share a few things that my neighbors have said about the protests yesterday. First of all, it was a protest. It was not a riot. 6 white men who the organizers, who are all black women, begged to stop with their rowdiness, decided to do all of the vandalism and turn it into a riot. It wasn't a riot. Also, the police put up jammers so that people cannot live stream. And so it was very hard for people to actually live stream because they didn't want people to see what was happening. They also shot rubber bullets into the crowd and would not let EMTs or EMCs actually get to the people there. People would call 911 saying, hey, they were hurt by a rubber bullet, and they wouldn't be able to get to the hospital. People actually had to drive people who were hit in the head with rubber bullets to the hospital. Also, I heard rubber bullets being shot up until like 10, 11 p.m. at night from my own bedroom. Good morning. I know a lot of things aren't going to be shared.
All right, so that's an excellent story from the field. If only we had more evidence or information to back that up. And oh wait, we do.
That's the police station right there. That's why I'm doing this to you guys. What the?
So a normal, peaceful rally going on pretty good. Then this guy right here, Umbrella Man, shows up. He's dressed in all black. He's wearing a heavy gas mask on him, and he likely has tactical boots because he probably works for the other side. See, you can see Umbrella Man is smashing the windows of the auto zone. He's allowing for easily access to other people. Pink Shirt Man is probably telling him not to. He's asking, what are you doing? Pink Shirt Man seems to have a pizza.
I zoomed in. I'll zoom out a little bit. Those cops will come for you if you're pulling that crap.
Now, see, he doesn't understand this guy's already a police officer, right? The rest of us have seen this movie before. It's really unfortunate they don't keep following him. You got to keep following him or perform a citizen's arrest. This would be a great time for the citizens just to cuff him and take him down. You see the umbrella, see the attitude. Clearly military, wants to fight this guy. He's got it. You see in his right hand right here, he has a hammer. So he came to the rally with a large-scale gas mask, a military-looking covering, black gloves, military-looking shoes, and what did he bring? He brought a hammer because he only came to smash those windows and walk away. It's almost as if the riots were accelerated by an outside force. He goes after the cameraman, doesn't like being filmed. Almost as if we're going to identify you, guy. The entire internet is working on this. We've got video. We're not going to stop.
Are you a fucking cop?
Are you a fucking cop? Shakes his hands. Guy's still following. Cameraman's just got to stay on it. Just follow him home. Film his license. Film everywhere he goes. He gets on a bus. You just follow him. Next time this happens, if you're the cameraman, you got to keep following him. This pink shirt guy gets it. But who knows if he's willing to go the distance here. So you see, he smashed up the auto zone, then he walked away. You gotta stop him. You just made your peaceful protest violent. So very strange stuff going on in Minnesota today. If you'd like to look for it, it's called AutoZone Umbrella Man. AutoZone Umbrella Man. They had a match earlier. They believe that he was a police officer. They'd already found him. They think the match now is invalid. But I guarantee you, Umbrella Man, we're going to find you. Like, this video is right here. It's never going away. We're mirroring it right now. Other people are mirroring it. People are downloading it. But why do we have agent provocateurs in America? And again, he could just be a crazy guy. Let's put out the possibility. He's just a crazy guy. He's racist. He doesn't like African American people. He wants them to get hurt more. So he goes out and smashes some windows to make the riot violent so that they'll get hurt more. That seems like a pretty big stretch. It seems a lot easier that he's military or police and he was paid by the military or police, given a simple mission: walk in with a hammer, walk out with a hammer, and he succeeded in his mission. Unfortunately, those pesky kids with their cell phones were there to capture the Umbrella Man, even getting us a close-up of his face when he threatens this man right here. So Umbrella Man, the other... Look, there you are. Look, there you are. Oh, look at that. We're going to get you. We're going to get you. They should have just arrested him right there, but they don't know what to do. But now that you've seen this, you know what to do. You'll know what to do. Want to go ahead and open it up for phone calls at this point. It's a pretty violent day, a pretty bizarre day. If you guys would like to call in, you could call in now at 1-518-600-1949, or you can call us on Skype at World Crypto Network. Have you ever seen a riot like this in America before? Certainly, I age myself here, but I remember the Los Angeles riots after the Rodney King shooting, and I remember the guy being pulled out of the semi-truck, Reginald Barry or something like that, but he was beaten, Rodney King. The 4 officers beating on him, and then the next day, Reginald Barry pulled out of the truck and beaten. The Korean grocers burned down. Most of South Central burned down. That was a pretty big riot. But that was only like one night or something. It didn't seem like that really went on. This has staying power. Everyone's watching this right now, and they're all thinking about what to do tomorrow night. And it's going to get worse. And it's going to be in more cities. We didn't even really cover it here, but there were additional riots in other cities. There was word of maybe 40 arrested in Kentucky. There were riots in Los Angeles. This is going to continue. No one has been charged for the murder of George Floyd. No one has been charged. So they do have a day administratively to try to fix this thing. That lawyer who I said was losing his career, he could still do the right thing, get the charges out today, at least have something to tell these people tonight. More likely, though, they'll focus on the reaction of last night and the mistakes made, and they won't get anything done today, and we'll be right back out there in the streets tonight. I'll be watching it on MSNBC, at least until they cut off the feed. Then I'll switch to the internet, try to watch it out there. Although it sounded already from the example that they were jamming cell phones, allegedly, during the initial protest. Quite a lot happening in Michigan. Quite a lot happening with the coronavirus as it continues to spread, as in we're in complete denial of it. More and more I went through Twitter. I saw post after post of people saying, I went to the store, no one was wearing masks. I went to the grocery store, no one was wearing masks. I went to the department store, no one was wearing masks. They weren't even doing social distancing at some places. At other places they were, but people seem to think that you can just wish this away, and I don't think that's going to work. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Miss. How's it going, man? It's Marty from San Jose.
It's going good. How's it going, Marty?
Oh, pretty good. I'm getting ready to head down to Los Angeles to visit my parents, and hopefully society's not crumbled apart by the time I get there. It's about a 6-hour drive, but oh my gosh. What was weird, a few weeks ago, I had a dream. I was going to visit my parents, and it was almost like a premonition, like there were volcanoes and tsunamis and a bunch of chaos that I was headed towards. So who knows, man? Who knows?
And now you're headed back to LA, which I was just mentioning from the previous riots of my youth. And certainly similar ethnic backgrounds, similar pissed off people. They like to burn things down. It could be very hot there tonight. I don't know.
It could. Yeah. It was 1992. My mom told me stories about it. We lived in Koreatown during that time. I was 2 years old, so I don't remember anything, but years later I would look at the LA riots. You can see the videos on YouTube, a lot of the same stuff.
Well, there's that great line by Sublime in that Sublime song. It's like April 20th, 1992. There was a riot on the street. Tell me, where were you? And he's all like, you were sitting at home watching your TV while I was parred in some beating and some anarchy. And they describe how they got their PA system and they got better guitars and they robbed the liquor store. And there was a lot of revenge in there. And I've seen a lot of people there like, why are they smashing up the Target? Why are they smashing up the AutoZone? And part of it is just anger. But I saw someone else who had the information from the street there. And of course, this is not a great neighborhood where they're rioting. Apparently, this isn't a great target either. This was some kind of a special anti-theft target. So whenever you went into it, you felt like you were a criminal. There were cameras everywhere. Everything you wanted to buy was probably in a plastic case. You had to have someone unlock it for you, like they're starting to do now with razor blades and soap. But yeah.
And Target?
Yep.
And Target?
Yeah, well, this Target specifically that they burnt down was a special, like a model for Target. Target's based out of Minnesota. And this was like a special anti-theft target. So when they burned it down,
I shed no tears.
That's what I'm saying. Part of it was just dislike. Yeah.
I had a little rough upbringing, and I tried to steal a bottle of wine from Target one night. I had already been drinking, and you just want more, and you're broke, and blah blah blah. One thing led to another. I was arrested there, and they have a whole loss prevention team at Target. And Target is one of the largest corporations that they funnel tons of resources into loss prevention. They actually have like a central database where all of the camera footage goes, and they have a little mini jail cell at every Target where they put all the shoplifters, and they handcuff you to a metal bench in the back room. And just for a bottle of wine, dude, I spent 30 days in jail.
Wow.
And total bullshit. But that's because they hire these lawyers, these really powerful corporate lawyers, that if you're caught shoplifting there, you don't stand a chance. They get a restraining order on you. I'm not allowed at any Target. So, like I said, I shed no tears for Target. The looting is, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that. I lived in Oakland during, the Occupy protest, and I saw a lot of what went down over there, and I don't know if you remember this, that Afghanistan war vet, Scott Olson, he's a Veterans for Peace. He got shot in the head with a tear gas canister.
Wow.
And I was there that night, and he has like permanent brain damage from it, and they were shooting rubber bullets at us, and it was like a fucking war zone. I'm 30 years old now. I'm too old to you kind of, when you're younger, it's exciting and it makes sense, but when you're older, man, you value different things, and I don't think I would. I don't know. I mean, things are messed up, but I'm not too old, man.
Well, I think you just get caught up in it too. If you were nearby and if you were angered by it, and if you watch the video and you see the guy get murdered right there on the street, at a certain point, it just doesn't matter. You can only see red, right? You're like a bull. You just got that anger, and you're just out in the street expressing the anger, and you're with a whole bunch of other people expressing the anger, and it just spirals out of control, and you start burning down buildings or something. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what happens, and there's a cop going down the street. I don't know if you hear the sirens.
Sure.
Sign of things to come, man.
When I was a kid, they told us all the cops were our friends. I was in the Dare to Keep a Kid Off Drugs program, and they told us how nice the cops were and how we should wave at police officers and stuff. And I'm a dumb kid from the suburbs. What do I know? So I'm waving at police officers, and eventually I realized you don't wave at police officers. You're attracting their attention. You don't smile at them. They think you're up to something. There's no way to positively interact with a police officer except, in certain controlled environments where they know that you're trusted. Otherwise, they just don't trust anyone. And part of it is, it's a really bad job. They're working a really bad job. They're dealing with really bad people. They learn not to trust people, and then they just continue not trusting people.
Imagine the shit that they see on a day-to-day basis. Just the worst of humanity they have to deal with. And I'm not justifying the way that they act. Don't get me wrong, but they see atrocities daily. Car accidents, domestic abuse. I mean, just on, and every day. you develop a certain tolerance to that. It makes you desensitized. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's complicated, right? Like if you start dissecting all this stuff, you go down a rabbit hole where. I will say this though, I'm glad that people are onto. They're keen about the agent provocateurs because that is a big thing, man. And
well, you heard that here. I don't know if they're going to cover that on CNN. Obviously, we didn't have the most detailed information, just the one report by the lady and then the actual report of the guy smashing the windows. But clearly something's wrong there. There's certainly a possibility that he's just a psychopath. He wants to smash windows. He's just a psychopath. He wants other people to be blamed for his window smashing. The umbrella is a pretty strange carry item right there. But the military gear is not. We've seen the military gear over and over again in these agent provocateur situations. I forget the last one, but there was another protest where they looked at the bottom of his boots and they were like, those are the same boots that the police officers are wearing. And right there, they knew, and the rest of his gear is military too. So this does keep happening. And you wonder with the age of video, at a certain point, they're going to have to stop. Like it's going to happen so many times and we're going to catch them so many times that even if you don't believe in conspiracy theories, and I still believe a lot of this riot was just, accidental and angry people and all that kind of thing. But it does look like part of it was also provoked. It was provocateur, right? It was provoked, right? The right word. But
there are the people too. They are the Black Bloc protesters. I'm sure you've heard of them before.
Yep, that was the Berkeley situation. Yeah.
Yeah, they dress up in all black. It comes from, I think, Germany or some European country, and they would all dress in black so that they couldn't be identified, and then they would go out and then they would smash things, and it was like an anarchistic motivated thing, and smash capitalism, blah blah blah. But the irony of that is, you smash a window, some guy's gonna have to fix it.
Yep.
And I mean, you're not. You could try. That's the funny thing. You can't really beat it by trying to break it. It's like a self-healing system that it almost empowers it when you lash out at it.
Well, and I think it was the previous African American killing, either the one in the backyard or the one in New York State, where they burned down like a Wendy's. And they were very happy. They burnt down a building, but had grease in it. It went up really well. But that Wendy's was where everyone in that neighborhood ate. It was their food source. And they burnt down their food source, and now there was nowhere, not that it's even a great option to eat at Wendy's, but there was nowhere at all to eat in the neighborhood. And that's why, we saw them last night burning down this liquor store. How do you know it's a bad neighborhood? Because they have a liquor store. I mean, there's liquor stores in all the bad neighborhoods, and they essentially feed on these problems. They contribute to these problems. Why is it so easy to get something so destructive? So many families, so many domestic violence cases, all caused by alcohol, and it's on every street corner. So some of these things, it might be a good idea to burn down. That's a predatory business, a liquor store. That's eating your community. And as much as, sure, it's nice to have a drink every once in a while and all that, but you could go to the grocery store. It doesn't have to be so convenient. That's part of the problem. But, yeah, we're definitely going to keep seeing it. And unless they get that prosecution decision done today, I think there's going to be more riots tonight. I think they're going to be angry at the police. They've seen what happened to the CNN guy. They've seen this. You almost forget now. There was also the video in New York City in Central Park where the guy asked the lady to put her dog on a leash, and she proceeded to call him an African American several times in a threatening manner. And then she made that crazy phone call where she changes her voice to make it seem like she's being attacked. And we have the whole thing on film, again. It's just crazy out there. I just can't imagine.
It is crazy. One thing that comes to mind, have you ever seen the movie Gangs in New York?
Yep. Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis and a Scorsese movie, and they're all fighting.
Yep. Yeah. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. In that movie, they have the riots. I forget, there was a special name, the draft riots, right?
Right.
Is that what it was called?
I'm not
You're
sure.
better at history than I am.
Maybe
Okay.
Haymarket riots. I don't know. Gangs of New York riots.
Something, but this has happened so many times in our country, where like, I mean, look at what's been going on now, right? We have $7 trillion created out of thin air. Who knows where it's going? I know that they're propping up the repo market. We're not seeing a dime of that stuff.
No, there's no second stimulus coming, and it was funny. Even my friends in other countries. I was talking to a friend of mine in Vienna recently, and he knew the same thing that I knew. He was like, I hear that most Americans don't have more than $500 in their bank account. They can't go a month or two just, on a vacation or on a break or whatever. And we're right up against that. And the House passed a second stimulus bill that would have bailed out states and local governments and normal people. But the Congress, the Senate, will not take it up at all. Mitch McConnell's been approving judges all week and refuses to take up a second stimulus. It's crazy. I don't know what they obviously they printed the money for the corporations first, so they don't care. Which is
they don't.
Like,
and they live lavish lifestyles.
Yeah,
they don't.
And the stock market came back, so they don't care.
Yes.
That if it
and
is,
not only that, but they knew that the dip was coming, so they sold out before that happened and bought back in so that they could. It's insane. So you have all that, and then what happens? Oh, the black dude gets killed by the cop. But the crazy thing, they just started pushing these stories out. Like, this stuff happens all the time. It's not, unfortunately, it's not uncommon. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
It's not an uncommon occurrence, but it just seems off. Like everyone knows the media is owned by these very rich and powerful people. Maybe obviously they have an agenda. There's 40 million people unemployed. They want the chaos. Divide and conquer, man.
I think part of that's true, but another part I just think is these camera phones. I think that this kind of stuff has been going on for 50 or 60 years or whatever, since civil rights movement in general. All the stories, even you hear Chris Rock, famous comedian, describing what he does when he's pulled over by the police. He doesn't mess around. He doesn't joke around. He puts his hands on the wheel. He's scared for his life. He makes the presumably the best choices he can in the situation. And I just think more and more there's just a camera there. And this one, you got the one guy is on his neck. The other three guys are standing around, and they could have done something. The camera guy could have done something. The walkers by could have done something. Even just knocking the cop off his neck for 10, 15 seconds could give him a breath of air. And sure, it's a sacrifice. You're definitely getting arrested if you run in and, knock a cop over or something. But I think it's time. And that we saw similar footage yesterday of people were being beaten up by cops, and then they stopped and the crowd joined in and the crowd started fighting the cops. And then there were more cops and they won anyway. It's a matter of, preparation and tactics and training. And also the people didn't bring any sticks. We saw in that video with the CNN guy, the cops had large sticks for beating people. So maybe the people need to have large sticks. But yeah, it does seem like it's keep going. But I think it's the cameraman. Camera phones, and that it's just so widespread. It's just so widespread that we only have a couple footage of aliens, even though we have lots of camera phones. But we have tons of these murders. We've got backyard ones. We've got middle of the street ones. We've got in a business ones. We've got all kinds of different of these murder videos. And
right.
I don't know how long it can go on before, as a police officer, those guys that were on his neck, it's weren't they thinking that they were going to be the next police officers? Didn't they know about the police officer that strangled the guy in New York City? The other ones that shot the guy in the back? The one with on the BART station, he pulls his gun instead of his taser. That's an easy mistake. A lot of people make that mistake. And I'm glad we gave him tasers too. That's a great decision. But Yeah, you got it. How long can this go on? How much, like, does anyone want to be a police officer now? Like, what a terrible job. Like, you've got to be really down on your luck to be a police officer. We've completely changed the policing. Like, even when I went to school and, you know, like, people believed the police officers about DARE, right? They believed them. They came into our classes and they gave speeches and stuff and they were respected. And that seems pretty much gone. The idea that you would tell a police officer if you saw something or you would report a crime or something, that seems pretty much gone. I'm not sure why anyone would do that, even if you weren't an African American or something. I just don't see helping those people out being a good idea. What a destruction to our society.
They don't get paid very much either.
Oh, that's not
They
true.
get paid.
Oh, come on, don't put that out there. You know they make tons of money on overtime. Come on, police officers.
Actually, I didn't. I just remember doing a Google search, like, I don't know, it was a few months ago. I was wondering, how much does a cop make? And it'll tell you, like, like 30,000 or something like that.
The base pay is not very good, but they usually make about triple that on overtime pay. And this is, again, they kind of rig the system so there's not enough police officers, so that you constantly have to be paying this overtime pay. It's part of what you pay. Then they make like $150K a year, and they get boats. All the police that I knew, they all had boats and divorces, and they all drank like fish. So yeah, it's a really, and again, I saw this as a reason not to go into that line of work. I was like, oh, they're all divorced, they have boats, they drink like fish, like this is awful. So this is close. This is almost what I'm talking about. Oh, come on, move the thing. Oh, I can't move. It says, anyway, before the article went away, it said Minnesota prisons are logging record amounts of overtime. So almost there. Give me a minute, and I'm sure I'll have a great story about how much money police are making in overtime. So
Gotcha. I didn't know that. Yeah. It makes sense, though. It makes sense.
Yeah, they do very well.
Lord.
And that's why I was so surprising to see that one today that was marked lieutenant, that he didn't know it was a bad idea to arrest the CNN guys, and that he wasn't able to identify that camera as a real camera, identify that the camera was on, identify the camera was still on. I want to know more about that lieutenant guy. I want to know what school he went to, so I could tell people not to go there, because yeah, that was ridiculous. Like. There again.
That was one of the first things that I watched this morning, and it was surreal. With the burning buildings in the back, I mean, it was anarchy.
Unclear, and the cops in the street, and they were all afraid. They heard that sound, and they all jumped like 10 feet, and they turned on their flashlight and stuff. They're like, "Oh man, this guy's gonna drive through the intersection." That's what they thought. They were at that level of. People are just going to drive over police officers now, which, again, maybe because of what you did, huh? Maybe you should not do the things you've done, right? You should change them. Yeah. And then adding to it by doing the CNN guy. At any point during that, any one of those officers could have said, hey, we're making a mistake here. This is a reporter from CNN. He's live on TV. Like, I could say hi to mom. You know, we're making a mistake here. Instead, they went through the whole process of arresting them. They dragged them over there. And if we didn't have the video, if we didn't know that they were gone, they could have tortured them in jail. They could have done all kinds of things to them. They could ruin their lives. They're still going to have to appear. They're going to have to come back to Minnesota and appear. They're going to have to waste their time. Just a big waste. And it was obvious, just like it was obvious with this other guy. When someone's underneath your knee and they're asking for air, you should let them up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, how complicated that has to be, but they should. That's it. So.
Yeah, the other thing too, the cops, they wear the riot gear, and their faces are covered, and like you said, they look like stormtroopers. And I mean, it's just like. They're dehumanizing themselves so that it makes it easier for people.
The Minnesota Department of Public Safety.
Sorry, autoplay video thing, bastards.
But they make it. I mean, it's. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, It's definitely gonna get worse before it gets better. So,
Yep. Well, let's hope we see some nice action on Bitcoin, and that's what I'm hoping for. It goes up enough I can buy some property out and just get out of the city with my wife and everything, because maybe that's how the Citadel starts, man. All the Bitcoiners have had enough shit, and we just find a place to move to.
I don't know. Citadel seems like a honeypot to me. Seems like everyone should.
I thought about that. Yeah, I thought about that.
You can gather up all the Bitcoiners, and then I'll just be out by myself, and then we can see how that goes. So, yeah, it's and also I've been to a bunch of Bitcoin conferences. I've even been to the Libertarian Conference, PorkFest in New Hampshire, and I don't know if you really want to spend the rest of your life hanging out with Bitcoiners. maybe some of them, but a lot of the ones that I've met are very difficult to deal with, even when you are their friends, and so on and so forth. So they're a rough group of people to take care of, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I hear you.
Detroit police chief.
Yeah. You had the old angry goat on the other day. It was during the halving.
Yep.
And he seemed like a really, really cool guy. I don't know what his story is, but
he'll tell you his story over and over again. But no, he's a good character. He likes Bitcoin. He lives down in Mexico. I don't know. I'm not speaking out of school here, but he had some trouble with the law. I think he was investing with other people's money, and it didn't work out well. And so he went away for a while, and now he's back out. He's a big fan of Bitcoin and really likes it. He's got some kind of trading thing. If you want to sign up for Ugly Old Goat's like trading academy, he'll teach you how to trade or something like that. I don't know the details, but no, he's a good guy. He's a big fan of Mad Bitcoins. Ugly Old Goat really likes Mad Bitcoins. Thought I was onto something there. Enjoyed the show, so it's very cool.
Yeah. I don't know about those pay to learn how to trade deals, because I always thought, like, if they're like a real good trader, they don't need to get people to, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, if they were that good, they would just retire, right? I mean,
yeah. There are some guys that they do some free trade info. Do you do trading, by the way?
Huh? Trading?
Do you do crypto trading?
No, not really. That? I mean, I have to sell every once in a while to try to live. But other than that, not too much. I mean, it's too hard to time it and then to know what the right thing is and so on and so forth. Why are there all these black bars in this video?
It's not worth it. Yeah. I mean, they have there's a lot of algorithms too that they're trying to game people who do try to trade it, right? Like,
oh yeah, well they say a lot of it, like, you think that you would be safe because you would set maybe like a stop loss before and after the trade, that kind of thing. But there's so many kind of bots that are moving the stop losses up and down so quickly that it might just blow through your bottom, knock you out of the market, and then blow right through your top where you would have had profit. So stuff like that makes it very hard to trade. I don't know. I certainly tried in the early days. I managed to turn like 1 Bitcoin into a quarter of a Bitcoin, something like that. But it was only worth like $20 or $100 or something, so it wasn't that big a deal. But stuff like that taught me not to trade and not to try to time the market and everything, because it always goes up when you want it to go down, and all vice versa. So it's pretty crazy.
You hold on too long, thinking, getting greedy, and
well, it always seems so easy in hindsight too. In hindsight, it's so easy to say, oh, I should have done this, or all you have to do is this, and that kind of thing. And no, it's not that easy. And once again, I mean, you'd know because they would publish their trades. The ones who are pretty serious about it, I mean, Goat's pretty good, actually. I mean, of course, recently it looks like he hit every bottom and every top. So he's just been murdering it across the board, which is a lucky streak. But still, he's publishing the trades. He's publishing the ins and outs. whereas other trading people just keep saying nonsense and don't seem to actually trade. So it's very strange that people continue to follow them without the skin in the game, right?
Oh yeah. Well, there's tons and tons of them, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre. I mean, that a lot of ways that seems like what crypto YouTube has become.
Yeah, there's not a lot of interest in the technology or what we can do with it as a society or discussing it at a higher level. It's just this kind of daily price thing, and then they tell you the price of some altcoins and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's not. I don't find it to be. Yeah, I don't find it to be very complex. I mean, I think it's a lot like fortune telling. Like it has its place, and a lot of idiots pay fortune tellers money to get advice, and then the advice doesn't work out, but they believe that it does because of they want to believe, and that kind of thing, confirmation bias. And so I think there's a lot of that going out there, and I think a lot of people they feel a lot better having outsourced their ideas. So I mean, I have an idea here. I think Bitcoin's good. That's my idea. I'm sticking with it. But if I just outsourced it and I just watched someone else and they told me that Bitcoin was good today, or it's bad tomorrow, or it's good the next day, then I wouldn't have to think. I could just outsource my thinking to them. And I could say, when they say the market goes down, that's when I sell. And when they say it goes up, that's when I buy. And they just like not to think. They just like to outsource.
You have someone to blame other than yourself for when you lose money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I trade it myself, it's all my fault. It's all my ideas. But if I just listen to a guru, then the guru takes all the pressure off me, and I could just profit or lose because I listen to the guru. It's more religious than it's about thinking. So.
Totally. Yeah, that's why the Halving show was so awesome, man. The conversations that were going on, you just don't get a lot of that. It's hard, it's very difficult to find. The people that you get on World Crypto Network, they're on point.
Oh, we try to keep it going here, but it can be hard. A lot of those easier to do shows with the predictions make a lot more viewers. So we're just kind of hanging on here, and that's why when I try to ask people to like the show and to subscribe and stuff, and I guess it sounds pretty corporate and fake, and there's a friend of mine that just thinks all of that stuff's fake, but I think that's what you have to do to get an audience. Like if you can get a couple more likes, if you can get a couple more subscribes, if people come back, then maybe 5 or 10 more people come in, 5 or 10 more people come in, and maybe they disagree but they like the discussion, or maybe they agree but they like the discussion. I think we can have that kind of high level discussion, but it's only going to be supported by us, right? This isn't going to be heavily sponsored by fancy companies or heavily promoted by anyone. So if we're going to get more people, it's going to come from this liking and the sharing, and it seems like it does nothing, but I mean, I look at the videos that have more likes and they get more views. So I think it's much better to have more. So
I try to like every video, Thomas.
Oh, you're the man, Marty. And thanks so much for calling in, and give us a call anytime, man.
All right. Will do, man. Take it easy.
All right. Thank you. Thanks so much, Marty.
Bye-bye.
And there was Marty in San Jose. It looks like we had another caller when we started, so if you want to call back in, of course, we just have the one line here. But if you want to give us a call, you can call us now at 1-518-600-1949, or call us on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We'd like to hear your opinion on what's happened today, either Bitcoin or the riots or the police arresting CNN or anything else that's gone on. We also went ahead and pulled up the footage of George Floyd being murdered by the police officers, and we're going to go ahead and watch it. So this may be distressing. The Guardian has a large warning on this, so you might not want to watch this. Giving you fair warning here. So we also might not have any audio. Let's try to adjust this, get some audio.
People out here got him bleed on the ground. He crying and shit. Oh, that's sick.
Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. My stomach hurts. My neck hurts.
is still on his neck.
There's water or something. Please. Please. I can't breathe all the time.
You're not even resisting arrest, bro.
His whole nose is
Fought with him? Bro, but why you just sitting there? He ain't doing nothing now. Put him in the car.
Good morning.
How long y'all gotta hold him down?
This is why you don't do drugs, kids. It ain't about drugs, bro. Y'all understand that?
Y'all don't gotta put y'all.
He's not
Look at him.
right now. He's not responsive right now. He's not responsive right now. He's not responsive right now, bro. No, bro, look at him. He's not responsive right now, bro.
Check for a pulse.
Bro, are you serious? You gonna just let him sit there with that on
Let
his
me
neck,
see a
bro?
pulse.
Is he breathing right now? Check his pulse. Check his pulse. Check his pulse, Tal. Tal, check his pulse. Tal, check his pulse, bro.
Look at this dude.
Bro, check his pulse, bro. You
He
bogus,
just
bro.
landed. Don't
You bogus. Don't do drugs, bro. What is that? What do you think that is? You call what he doing okay? Get back on the call what he doing okay?
So there was the actual footage of the police officers murdering George Floyd. Hello, caller. Sorry about that. We were playing the video. Caller, you're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
It's Jennifer Silvis again, Meta Verde. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing, Jennifer?
I'm doing well.
What do you think of all
I'm
this
doing well. Things are moving along.
madness in the streets today in Minnesota and other things?
Yeah. Well, it's blowing up. You know, I kind of feel like things have. People want to talk about getting back to normal or opening the economy back up, but the economy is not going to open back up. You know, it's not going to get back to normal. We're going to hit hyperinflation here. I think what do they usually say, like within a year or two? So I don't know. I'm looking at a huge change.
I'd worry more
What do you
about
think?
the lack of demand. Like right now, we open things back up, and sadly, we've already started with a racial killing in the street by the police. So it would have been nicer if we could have just stayed home. I guess we could have avoided this. But no, it really comes down to that there's no demand. Even yesterday, I watched CNBC early in the morning when they opened the market, and they'd woken Jim Cramer up for it again. And Cramer made some very solid points. He said if Disneyland is reopening at 50% capacity, that means they can only make 50% of the money that they used to make, and that their stock should be worth 50% less, when in actuality, the Disney stock went up 30%. So according to Cramer, it's at 80% overvalued. This is across the whole market, right? There's just some kind of madness and separation happening where the stock market thinks things can keep going on fine, while as the actual reality shows that there's not going to be any demand. And then second, a lot of the small businesses we were planning on going back to have already gone out of business, right? All the restaurants.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a complete denial, and there's this kind of belief that we can just go back out into the streets and start spending money again, and everything will go away and the virus will go away. And that's why the people aren't wearing masks anywhere, because they just think it's over. They were tired of staying inside. They felt they'd done it long enough, and now they're just going to go out back into the streets. And it doesn't make any sense. And maybe, I guess they've said that this is split now on political lines, that Democrats are very concerned about what's going to happen, and Republicans don't care at all. And I think that's very dangerous to see science go to just one of the parties, and to see another party completely lack science. But I do think that's where we are, and we're going to watch in horror as the second round of the disease comes out, as the true economic problems come out. And you can't just... I understand. I've seen Wag the Dog, the movie. I think it's very important. And I think the president's trying to wag the dog all the way to the election. And if he could just sweep things under the rug enough to get reelected, that would be his choice and his preference. So we're going to see if that happens. And then on the other side, he's building a very strong case against the election. His strong stance against mail-in ballots, even though he voted with a mail-in ballot, even though Vice President Pence voted with a mail-in ballot, even though the whole Trump family voted with mail-in ballots, even though the whole military votes with mail-in ballots, even though the entire state of Oregon has voted with mail-in ballots for more than 20 years and never had a widespread case of voter fraud. He's still pushing this false narrative, and that just shows how important it is to him. So no, I still think we're in a bubble. We're both in the coronavirus bubble, waiting for that to pop again, and that we're in the economy bubble and the political bubble. And I don't know. Things could be very different a year from now. Very, very different. We could be living under a president who won't leave. That really changes a lot of the calculations on what's a Congress and what's a Supreme Court and all these kind of ideas, and what side the Capitol Police want to be on. So yeah, it's scary times. Did we lose her?
If it helps,
Go ahead.
the people in Seattle have upticked on the mask wearing and social distancing.
Well,
and as things are slowly opening up, people are being extremely cautious. I understand the eastern side of the state is getting worse. Couldn't have written this shit like even 10 years ago. I actually started saying that, I don't know, probably in the election where Obama got elected and he was running against McCain.
Yep.
You know, like it's just been like a farcical novel for over a dozen years here. But I think we've been propping up the stock market since '08. My understanding, without looking into it too horribly deeply, is that pretty much since '08 that a lot of the stock price has been support from companies using, like, basically, I don't know, whatever bailouts they get to, but they're going to cry about giving us $600 a week, right? But you can give however many billions to companies.
Well, and remember, they used the last bailout to rebuy their stock.
Yep, that's what I'm talking about. So like stock has been overvalued, right? I mean, this whole and the only reason that the dollar value on stuff is up so high is because the dollar's not worth crap anymore, and like our inflation here isn't that bad yet because it's like an internal, it's like an internal system as far as like our pricing here in this country. But it's like Joel Salatin said, we don't have cheap food, we have the mystique of cheap food. So it's, the whole thing is going to blow up. I'm being incoherent. I'm putting all these like word salad sound bites in there. I'm sorry. I feel like you're tracking though.
It's all right. Well, even the cheap food, we know it's all bad food that's cheap. If you go to like a 99-cent store, you can get all the candy you want for $1, but it's just sugar. Right. It's different forms of sugar. Right. There's no actual food there. I mean, they've gotten a little better. They have kind of a produce section now, but that's also more of just a sign of how bad we're dragging people down. That people now are thinking it's a legitimate option to shop at 99-cent store because they're so broke and they can't go anywhere else. So it's very bad.
Oh, that horrified me. I have a friend in Idaho that I visit, and we do shopping trips with the senior center, because it's a small town in Idaho and the senior center is the most happening spot. We do shopping trips with the senior center, and those women buying all of their groceries at the dollar store, it just horrified me and Linda.
Well, it's all chemicals.
Even the meat can't be good. Yeah. It's like, like the chlorine processed chicken, and I mean, if you're getting a pound of chicken at the dollar store, what is it?
Well, you got to figure it's old. A lot of the stuff, like you're getting crackers or something. It's like they've tried to sell those crackers in 4 different stores. They've shipped it here, they've shipped it there, they've marked it down, and then when you open it up, the reason it doesn't taste as good as the real crackers or whatever is because it's older. There's also things that they do, like they make different versions of their food for the dollar store. There was an idea recently they couldn't get the cans of soup to be cheap enough to sell them at like $2 for $1 or something. They couldn't maintain the price. So what they did is they removed the protein from the can. So now you buy a can of chicken soup that doesn't have any chicken in it. So it's really bad for you. Yeah. It's really bad for you, and it's not, nutritionally valuable, but it keeps the price down. And if the people don't notice, they just buy it. So.
I mean, if you see a familiar label, you're not going to necessarily look and read all of the ingredients. Like I have to eat gluten-free, and I've occasionally got something, where I didn't read the label every single time I bought it, and the ingredients change or something. And this usually happens with vitamins, ironically enough. And then I'll have a reaction to something. It's like,
Yep, they'll sell different versions of the product at the dollar store. Like they could take the things that are broken up and they're crumbs. They could sell the crumbs of the chips at the dollar store. Just say that they're broken, that kind of thing.
Breading.
And again, they're
There's
just
breading
taking
for your fried chicken.
Yeah, they're just taking advantage of people that don't know, and yeah, it's super sad. But
well, I'm going to throw this out there that when people are being oppressed, we have to speak to the oppressor in a language they understand. And I back the protest 100%. And I would have to look up who the quote is, but it's never the oppressed that are initiating the violence. The police are out there killing people, just fucking wholesale. They're crushing people in the streets, and yeah, it's mostly black people. I'm not even going to back off that. So anything that the people as a group do in response to having to watch their friends being killed isn't violence. We're not initiating the violence. When people are going out in the streets and tearing stuff up and burning things down, they're not the ones initiating the violence. And then your previous caller talked about Target's internal prison system, basically. I mean, not prison, but how does Target have the right to handcuff people to benches? That makes no sense. Anyway, that really points out why these businesses, and there's other reasons too, why these businesses are being targeted. And traditionally, stores like Target and Walmart have kind of taken advantage of poorer class less affluent neighborhoods.
Yep, definitely. Well, and we keep seeing it with where they place these stores and where they place the liquor stores. And the other interesting story about Target, I didn't tell it earlier, but they are kind of known for being an aggressive corporation. They're the ones that they were doing the monitoring of what you buy so well that they could tell that you were pregnant. So they had these certain things pregnant women will buy, like a little teddy bear, or they'll buy a baby blanket, or they'll buy like a pacifier, like months before the baby's there. Their brains will just, tell them to buy these things. And Target figured it out, right? They're like, oh, these buying habits are pregnancy habits. So what they did is they started sending coupons to anyone who had these buying habits. And this one guy came into the store and he was really mad. Why are you sending pregnancy coupons to my daughter? Blah, 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 blah. He was super mad. Well, he went home and he came in the next day and he said, well, Target, I have to apologize because there were things going on at my house that I didn't understand and know about. And his daughter was pregnant and Target knew about it, but he didn't. So that's the kind of stuff
they should have been
into.
using the Catalinas. They shouldn't have mailed out stuff. They should have used the Catalina, because that could go to some kind of privacy invasion, right? They should just use the Catalinas, the little at the register, print up coupons.
Yeah, no, they made a mistake, but again, they were trying to drive traffic. These pregnant people buy a lot of stuff. They want you to buy it all at Target.
Okay, so what I'm ostensibly working on when I'm done building my Fat Ass Ponies game for my Twitter friends is and there's streamer that's done this. I need to figure out how to use their API. But so that kind of data that Target's getting for free and that they're able to monetize. People ask, how is a UBI going to work? Well, we have, I don't know the dollar value of the data that gets collected off of us, but the dollar values that the data gets collected off of us should at least in part be returned to us, and not through these like candy paper coupon crap.
Andrew Yang had an idea about the value of our data and trying to make it more that these companies should pay us and that we should have full control of our data and we should know exactly what they have on us. But yeah, he didn't get that far.
Well, I'm not sure how to do it. I've kind of looked at it. Like I said, I'm learning how to do the coding thing. But Streamer has I think it's just streamer.io, STREAMR, has a way that you can set up your own like basically sell your own data, and you can is it called randomize? You can anonymize it to the degree that you want to anonymize it and choose which data you sell. I look at it and I haven't looked at it for a couple of months, but when I look at it, I'm like, okay, I want to do this, but I don't know how. But there are things out there. There's ways to hope. There's ways to monetize your own data. It's just implementing it isn't simple and straightforward yet.
Yeah, it would have to be the kind of thing where everyone would have to monetize their data to really get the corporations to stop using everyone. Because as it is right now, even if you left Facebook and I left Facebook and the 20 people that are listening right now left Facebook, Facebook would be fine, right? They're not going to be hurt. It needs to be a gigantic movement of people all just deciding, hey, my data is valuable. You know, my information is important. And I'm going to join a completely different kind of system. But that would take a huge move. People don't even like to change their email addresses or their domain names or anything like that. So it'd be tough.
I know people make fun of me for having so many email addresses and moving. And I was like, nah, I change my email address every once in a while. It's okay. I can do that. Yeah, it's kind of like I used to boycott Dole, the United Fruit Company, because of their like oppressive actions in South and Central America, and people used to make fun of me for that. I wouldn't drink Dole juice. I have no reason to buy Dole now because I only get like fresh stuff.
Yeah.
But people used to make fun of me for that. They're like, well, you know, what difference do you think it makes you boycotting Dole? You know, like, well, it might not make a difference to Dole, but it makes a difference to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like I used to not like BMWs and things because they made the airplanes during the war, or Mercedes-Benz, who developed those trucks where you would drive them around and the exhaust from the truck would go into the back of the truck, and you would start off with a bunch of prisoners, usually Jewish prisoners, and you would drive somewhere, and when you drove somewhere, they'd be dead in the back thanks to Mercedes-Benz engineering technologies during World War II. So yeah, no one seems to remember that. But I remember.
I have never heard of that.
Yeah, it's not a great story. The other nice one is that IBM, i.e. Hollerith, developed a typewriter, kind of a census machine that you could use to track people, and they had specific
the key punch machine
Yep.
that I grew up using, waiting for my dad when he was working on the mainframe at Jansen Knitting Mills. That very self-same technology is how they kept track of all the Jews they burned.
Yep, and it had buttons.
Yep.
It had a specific button for Jewish person, a button for homosexual person, a button for gypsy, a button for, retard or disabled type person. And when you design a machine like this with buttons like that, you know what it's for. This is the machine that made the Holocaust possible. And there's a whole book on it, IBM and the Holocaust. But no one ever reads it or talks about it. So
I read a good part of the Nuremberg papers back when I was homeschooling, and I hadn't realized how much of the concentration camp setup was basically to provide a human subject pool to the pharmaceutical companies in Germany. They talk about like the kind of like the pharma weapons connection, and the concentration camps were to provide a human subject pool for pharmaceutical experiments. I started to read one book about the stuff that was being, about one person's experience as a human subject. I remember that, and in the library I picked it up and I read part of it, and then I turned around and I put it back on the shelf, and I told the librarian, if I ever try to check this book out, stop me.
Yeah.
I do not need to read this.
Well, I mean,
it was just
the Bayer Corporation is very powerful during Germany the whole time.
I won't Bayer out, but I won't buy anything there. I'm sorry, continue.
But right now we have a picture on the TV right here from Wikipedia. The article is called Gas Van. A gas van or gas wagon. In Russia, the term is literally soul killer, was a truck re-equipped as a mobile gas chamber. During World War II, Nazi Germany developed and used gas vans on a large scale as an extermination method to murder inmates of asylums, Poles, Romani people, Jews, and prisoners in occupied Poland, Belarus, Yugoslavia, the Soviet Union, and other regions of German-occupied Europe. One of the interesting things about World War II and the Holocaust that I learned when I visited the Imperial Museum in Britain, first it was, several floors of awesome military equipment, and I was very excited to see everything in person and think about, an artillery shell that could shoot, 200 miles away and that kind of thing, just thinking about it. But then you go up to the top floor, and it's all Holocaust, and it's just a magnificent, heartbreaking display. The dim lights, and one of the things I learned there is that there were many satellite Holocaust camps in Russia, and that they would set up a small camp, use it for a little while, then move on, kind of like a local center, where they would just bring in all of the local undesirables and run the camp for a while, then shut it down. And so there are many more camps than we thought of. So when a lot of people have this kind of Holocaust severity denying thing, and they say that less were killed or it was impossible to kill so many, it's these satellite camps that we never focus on. We focus on the 2 or 3 with names in Germany or in Poland, that kind of thing. But no, there were tons more all over the Russian front. They had a map of them at the Imperial War Museum. So yes, much worse than we thought. The more you look at it, the worse it gets.
Definitely. Really, of course, they had mobile slaughter services.
Yep.
Well.
So we talked about World War II. We lose the internet. Godwin's law says that we lost. So.
Oh well, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay. It's my fault. I read all those books about him. So yeah, it doesn't help at all when you've read more information than other people and are ready to repeat it. They don't like that at all. So,
the world's about to change, and a few years ago, I remember like the whole 2012 thing, and I just thought it was BS. And then a few years later, I went, well, actually, I feel like the world did change. And then all of these things are happening that just seemed so far-fetched, right? Like the lockdowns, everyone was saying there was going to be martial law. And you're like, well, how's there going to be martial law? Well, now we know.
Yeah. Just like this.
Now we know how it's going to happen. So, I'm out there fighting for people, and, hopefully things will shake out better rather than worse. I don't know how far the government's planning to push it.
Keep working on your software and keep believing the best about people. That's all we can do. We have to believe the best.
What you think about, you bring about.
Yep. And it's fun you mentioned 2012. I went ahead and pulled it up on the screen here again. It was 2012 in the summer at Burning Man when they burned down Wall Street. So it's a really big, really big moment. I was there. I was unable to film. My cameras were out of batteries. I had to tell everyone, I was like, it's your job. You're going to have to film this. I'm going to have to rely on you for footage later. And yeah, it was really moving. I mean, they look like buildings. As you can see, they were shaped after Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo. They had different symbols and neon signs on the front. They had art galleries inside. You could enjoy the artwork. They removed the artwork before they burnt it. So it's cool. It wasn't just destroy the art, but they did destroy these buildings. And yeah, afterwards, in the kind of chaos after a burn, I was talking to a French guy, and the French guy was completely moved by this. He was kind of crying, and he was like, now that I've seen it, now that I've seen Wall Street burn, I know that it can happen.
Right.
It was pretty powerful.
Right.
It was cool stuff.
I might have told you about this before. My son sent me the cutest meme, and it's like basically like French officers working on a guillotine, and then the caption says in French, no, it's routine maintenance. It's just routine maintenance.
Just getting it ready.
They're like restoring. They're restoring an old guillotine or doing, whatever, like for one of their like artifacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Routine maintenance.
The fun thing about the
Yeah, I
guillotine
don't know. I know there's
is that
something planned for Seattle tonight, and I'm going to be there.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of protests in a lot of different cities, and I hope everyone wears their masks. I'd hate to be reporting on this in a few weeks saying that the various anti-racial protests spread the virus. But remember, we have to play on multiple levels here. Like, it's a complex game out there.
Our the notification I got said to be sure to take extra PPE for people who may not have them.
Yeah, and we've already saw the. It's funny because my friends used to be in animal rights protesting in high school, and then we kind of were involved in the umbrella thing in Hong Kong. So I've seen a lot of these protests, and you definitely got to bring milk. You got to be the smart people that bring milk for the tear gassed people.
Yep.
The pepper spray. Milk is great for that. It makes no sense. A lot of people see, where did these large jugs of milk come from? Who thought of this, right? And there'll be at least one person, maybe a motherly type person, who brought a whole bag of milk. And you could see at that protest video just from the other day, they handed them out. They went person to person. They were putting in their eyes, putting some in their mouth, trying to react against that pepper spray. So a lot of that stuff.
Oh, that's right. And Target wouldn't sell milk to protesters.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really bad. Because the protesters are going to use it to fix their eyes that the police are destroying. So very strange.
I was skimming through the so Unicorn Riot is the on point live streamer on YouTube, and it was Unicorn Riot that showed the actual inside the precinct burning.
Oh.
And then there were other live streamers, but they're like, we're not in competition. We're live streaming has just come so far since I just forgot the name of it when Mike Brown got killed and left in the street. How did I just forget the name of that town in Missouri?
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many. There's been so many.
Anyway, the live streaming has become so on point, and people are communicating with each other, and they're not competing with each other. They're not like fighting to get the best footage, like maybe news corporations would be. They're saying, okay, well, I know so and so was great, and so and so's been doing this, like Unicorn Riot. Unicorn Riot's great. He's been doing this a long time. He's in there in the 3rd precinct, and I've just started. I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm going to stay where I am and show this other thing. And there may not be a lot going on here. I'll try to find something going on, but I'm going to leave, the hardcore shit to the professionals. And I really appreciate that. We're getting a really nice broad spectrum view of everything that's going on in these riots, and I appreciate that. I think that that social media has really, as far as like YouTube and live streaming and different things like that, for Google and all that, but that people have really, the citizen journalists have really, stepped up to the plate and are giving us the information we need.
It's great to have more tools than we used to have. I know back when James used to do it in 2014 with the Hong Kong situation and the Umbrella Revolution, one of the big issues we had is that we only had Google Hangouts, and that if you had a single person Google Hangout and you drop your connection, you'd be disconnected and you'd have to start your stream all over again. You have to get the audience back again, all those things. So what we would do is we always had a person, a volunteer who was, here in California or on the East Coast or, somewhere safer than Hong Kong. And we could keep the stream going. So James would pop in and out as he had technical troubles, and we would keep the stream going. So it's really neat now. They can just broadcast directly to Periscope. It goes straight to Twitter. They can retweet it. People can copy the video. For example, this CNN video is never going away. That clearly went out everywhere. The same thing for the umbrella guy. That's not going away either, as much as I'm sure they would like it to. So yes, technology is definitely getting better, but you also heard what the girl said about the first day of the protest is that they blocked cell phones. They were using jammers so that they couldn't broadcast.
When the guard showed up, when they got word that the guard was showing up in Minnesota, like the stream started all going like really cattywampus.
Yep.
They definitely do. And then somebody's like, oh, well, it's illegal for them to do that. That's against FCC regulations. Like, oh, no way. You think the military violated national law? No way.
What are you gonna do? Give them a ticket?
Yeah, right.
Like they said
not
in
going to deal on them.
In Apocalypse Now, he was like, arresting people for murder over here is like handing out speeding tickets at the Indianapolis 500.
Right. Well, just the fact that the guards showed up for this, they're breaking the law.
Yeah. Well, if the state didn't ask them in, if the governor doesn't ask them in, the president can't just deploy them. So, but that's another technicality, right?
Isn't it illegal to call in the National Guard to act against U.S. citizens? That's part of our military. The military is not supposed to act against U.S. citizens, period, no matter what. If it were a bunch of Chinese agents, we're not going to pick on the Chinese. If it were a bunch of if it were a bunch of somebody else, agent provocateurs showing up that weren't actually U.S. citizens, then you could call in the National Guard, because then it's like it's an attack. It's a foreign attack on U.S. soil. But my understanding is that the National Guard is never supposed to be called against U.S. citizens, and that was like a huge thing with Kent State.
It seems they'd call them for a more
military.
I think they'd call them for a more general purpose, like protecting the public welfare or protecting those buildings, and that they would use the protection side over the side that they are going to have to fight American civilians.
But that's not what the Guard is for.
Well, they're going to misuse it. I mean, they did the things in the 60s with the water cannons and the against the civil rights movement. That was the National Guard. So, I mean, I guess they were used wrong there as well. But it's kind of like if you use something wrong every time, it's always going to be misused. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My point was just the fact that the Guard showed up for this. They're already in violation of federal law. So.
Well, they can't be everywhere at once either. They can guard Minnesota all they want, but like we said, Los Angeles is going to catch on fire. New York might catch on fire. There's a lot of angry people.
Seattle might catch on fire. I mean, and we're happy in Seattle.
I know, you guys even have the virus under control. You're winning.
Right? I mean, like this is so happy. I happily found a new place to live where I'll have my own room and I won't be in Redmond. But social distance, wore the mask, all
nice.
that. A lot going on. Oh, if anybody is having problems getting like licensed or whatever, my license had expired before I got my Washington ID. So I've been walking around without a license for over a year, which is fine because I'm not driving, but I'm about to be gifted a car, so I had to get my license. Private driving schools can do that for you, probably in most states. Anything that you're looking at that the government won't do for you, there's usually a service you can pay a little extra that will do it privately, and those are still open. At least in my area, those are still open. I'm going to check out for passports next.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting back to normal. I wouldn't mind going to the dentist. I don't know how safe that is. I don't know how safe anything is.
You wouldn't mind going to what?
The dentist.
Did you say the gym?
Dentist. I wouldn't mind going to the gym either, but I'd probably go to the dentist first. But yeah, just
dentist.
Yeah,
dentist.
And it's one of those things during the thing.
Sterile.
I think it's sterile. They said they're making everyone wait in their cars now. Like they'll call you on the phone or something, and you just come in the office, and there's no waiting room, and they're doing their best, and obviously they need to keep working, and people need to keep getting their teeth fixed. So, but yeah, it's one of those like, how do I really need to see a dentist, or do I really need to see a dentist? And the same thing for the gym. I'd love to go to the gym, but do I really want to go to the gym, or do I really want to go to the gym? How bad do I want to go? That kind of thing. So I did look up the chicken soup here on Dollar General. I don't have quite the exact can that I think I would show you at the actual store, but we can see that any of the soups that are less than $1, the official dollar soups, don't really have any meat in them. This condensed cream of chicken, I don't think has very much meat. I know the Campbell's chicken noodle doesn't have much. Condensed vegetable beef. And then it gets a little darker the lower you go. They have chili with beans for $1.50. But if you only have 65 cents or $1, you can get chili no beans. So it doesn't even have the beans in there. It just doesn't look good.
Did you say no beans?
Yeah, no beans, because beans have protein.
BEAN, no beans?
Yep.
How do you I'm not
It's
asking.
just
Never mind.
like some watery flavor water. And again, you think that you're buying your family food and you think you're getting them chili, but it's chili with no beans. They have chicken broth right here. That's not going to have any chicken in it. You can definitely get the more expensive soup for $2 a piece here. But then it's a question of if you're really saving money shopping at the dollar store or if you'd be better off at Safeway, where maybe you could get this soup on sale. But again, they do make specific products for cheaper stores. This 65-cent can of tomato it says tomato condensed soup. It's probably not very much in that at all. So this is what you'd be eating if you shopped only at the dollar store. So it's pretty creepy.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when you were younger? Did you used to hear stories about like old people having to eat cat food because it was all they could afford on Social Security?
Cat food and government cheese and other kind of weird handouts. Yeah. Well, that's why FDR put through Social Security insurance and retirement plans so that we wouldn't have homeless old people on the street just dying. We had a greater view of society then. We were like, we could help out those people. We could all maybe take a small pay cut and we could help people. But yeah, we don't have that anymore. Yep.
Well, I hope this revolution works. The sad thing is that there are a lot of people who still believe that Trump is playing 5D chess and that he's saving children from deep underground bases where they're being used as sex. I'm not saying children aren't being used as sex slaves, and I'm not saying there aren't deep underground bases. I have no idea. You know, I've got like so much weird stuff that's happened to me in the last couple of years. That I do not believe that Trump is saving us. I do not believe that the pedophiles are really being stopped. You know, but there's a lot of people who really think that he's playing 5D chess and that if you just do what the cops tell you to do, they won't kill you. I actually got a concussion from a Portland police officer because one of my best friends in Portland had inherited a house from her mother close in Northeast, and it turned into like a black neighborhood where the Portland Police Chief Charles Moose had lived for a long time, just off Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and it turned into a traditionally into a black neighborhood, and then it turned back into like a yuppie neighborhood when Portland got regentrified. But I got stopped several times there, basically for being white, and I was walking down the street and I didn't respond appropriately to a police officer, and I kind of do that, and he freaking jumped out of the car, threw me on the ground, and gave me a concussion, hauled me around in the back of his car in handcuffs for hours, sat outside like the drunk tank, what do they call it, whatever they call it, wherever they like take you if you're drunk, and said he was going to take me in there. I'm like, fly right at it. I haven't been drinking. We'll have fun. And he kept telling me I had warrants, and it confused the snot out of me. I was like, could I have warrants and nobody told me I had warrants? Is it possible for me to have warrants and never have been arrested? You know, I didn't know. My mother was a judge, but it didn't seem like anything that made sense. So this cop was basically flat out lying to me, had me handcuffed in the back of the car for a couple of hours, and then finally hauled me in, and I ended up arrested for resisting arrest.
That's a trumped up charge.
Yeah, and my mother, the judge, told me that there's no way that resisting arrest, she got dropped to discon. My mother called on her kind of dark side attorney friend to get it taken down to discon, to disorderly conduct, but there's no getting out of a resisting arrest charge, but there was no underlying arrest charge, right? Like, how can you get arrested for resisting arrest when there was no reason to arrest you?
They just think of reasons. You know how it is. They just make stuff up.
Yeah, no, but that's actually the charge is resisting arrest, and that's something that happened over 20 years ago that could happen. I don't remember where I was going with that whole tale, but shit's got to change.
Well, I think we're going to do one more topic here, then I think we're going to head to the ends of the show. But it's interesting that you mentioned deep under. Okay, all right. Well, Jennifer, we're going to talk about the deep underground military
deep
base.
underground bases.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because that's one of my favorite conspiracy theories. Anyone who wants to, you can just search for DUMB, deep underground military bases. And this is one of the best conspiracy theories there is because it seems totally factual. Basically, in the 1960s, the United States declared a patent for a nuclear boring machine. That's another thing you can search for, nuclear tunnel boring machine. And what this nuclear-powered boring machine would do is it would melt the rock walls into glass tubes so that you had a fantastic tunnel afterwards. You're actually melting instead of just moving stuff aside and then having to dig the stuff out later. You would actually melt it with a nuclear reactor. And the idea was that in the 1960s, the U.S. military built a ton of these deep underground military bases. Somewhere, I don't have it up right now, but there's a map. You could see that they've allegedly connected several of the military bases together. There was an even idea that you could tunnel underneath Moscow and then just drop a nuclear bomb from below. So these are very creepy things. This is where they think they've hidden the alien spaceships and maybe the aliens themselves and so on and so forth. They also believe that this could be just a contingency plan. If there's a nuclear war, they could put the entire population underground in these military bases. The other thing to think about, we don't have the graphic here, but they use a corkscrew design. So imagine just corkscrewing down further and further and further into the earth. So check out deep underground military bases. I don't know if it's real or not, but there's tons and tons of information on this. And you guys probably noted that Elon Musk, just about a year or two ago, said that he wanted to start the Boring Company. And now he has. And he's drilled a tunnel here in Las Vegas, and it seemed like it worked flawlessly and perfectly. And you wonder why we aren't using this technology more, why we don't have, perhaps, here's the map right here, a secret underground network of military bases connected by these underground tunnels. And again, they only made a map. So it's either a fake map or we really have these things. So I think a good note to end on, not all conspiracies are just false, right? Sometimes they're true. So
this is interesting. I never actually read Catch 22, but there was a sequel to it that I read, and it talked about, I don't remember deep underground bases, but like an underground railroad system around the country, and everybody, like the high up political guys, going down into that. I don't remember more about it because I read it more than 20 years ago, but it was really super interesting the way that things have been coming out. And yeah, the dumbs are probably real. There are literally hundreds of whistleblowers of people that have been in the secret space program and done the 20 and back thing. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I was kind of surprised on the dumbs.
Is that the like they teleported people to Mars and President Obama was involved?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the White House came out with a denial within a week.
Yeah, that was really weird.
If they wouldn't have denied it, I wouldn't have believed it. Yeah. Very weird. Very weird. Yeah, I've had some pretty bizarre experiences that, based on my personal experience, I'd say it's true. That there's no way for me to like transmit my personal experience to other people, and your personal experience is your personal experience.
Oh yeah.
And this is all hologram. Thank you,
all
Thomas. You're awesome.
Oh, thanks, Jennifer, for calling in. And thanks for hanging out. But we're gonna head towards the end of the show. But give us a call anytime. It's good to hear from you.
You to Bob.
All right. Bye. And yeah, thanks everybody for calling in. Thanks for sharing the thumbs up and thumbs down and subscribing down below. Thanks to everybody in the chat. I didn't get a chance to look at it yet, but I'll go check it out. I'll bet you guys love deep underground military bases. And also that little tidbit there, I'll bet you're all going to go read about President Obama and this very strange kind of teleportation to Mars and back program that they claim he was involved in. It's really weird. And again, with some of these conspiracy theories, some of it, maybe it's real, like the patent. here on the deep underground bases and the map. But maybe all the alien stuff is not real, right? You know, they just threw that in. The same thing, maybe they have a teleport machine. Maybe they didn't use Obama. I don't know. It's very strange stuff, but if you just keep digging, eventually you'll probably find a deep underground military base. But thanks to everybody for joining us. The price of Bitcoin has recovered just a little bit, but it's still down 0.39% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,426, a high of 9,630, and a low of 9,352. That's $1 for 10,608 Satoshis. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching this show. Until next time, bye-bye.